demos, topics, demos. Who's got some demos? Nobody. So we can demo what has been merged, which is RTL content localization. We can look at with that already, but we can take a new look now that it's in dev. RTL content localization. We have the new media field. I think it's named like this. And that's, oh, we have Bertrand. Bertrand, do you have a demo? Maybe it's not yet set up. So Bertrand, do you have a demo?
Not really. You know what? I'll do the shopping cart, and when I have the shopping cart and orders,
okay,
and shopping cart and checkout, then I'll do them.
Okay. We already have some demos to do. That's fine. Topics. We'll see what we have based on the questions. And other demos if people want to give more demos. So status Orchard 1. Orchard 1, we merged one PR issue upgrade jQuery. So Niranjan created a PR to update all the JS. jQuery, Bootstrap, and something else also. Can't remember, but at least jQuery and Bootstrap to the latest ones on the dev branch. jQuery, Bootstrap, maybe that's it. Yep, already good. Orchard Core. Orchard Core, if we look seven days ago, what do we have? I will just look at the dev branch first. Lucas correctly display validation errors for ContentFieldSettings and ContentPartSettings, so he's now validating the settings. Provide user-friendly pop-up messages when unpublishing item or discarding draft. User-friendly pop-up messages when unpublishing items. Because they were just random, well, common strings, now they are dedicated strings for the action you are doing. Are you sure you want to discard this draft, and not are you sure you want to do that? Whatever do that means. RTL support for TheAdmin theme. So from Hisham, it's merged, and I will show you how it looks like because we talked about it, but I'm not sure we've demoed it. Badge disabled in PascalCase so that all the badges are the same in the workflow and everywhere else. The only badges that are not PascalCase so far are the culture ones, and it's fine. We'll see that. Lucas again adds validation for patterns, the AutoroutePart and the AliasPart, so more validation when you edit the AutoroutePart and AliasPart settings. Now it will show correct validation instead of not validating and just failing when you edit the things. Support RTL for setup screen, so the setup screen can now be RTL'd. Peter fixed enabling features in the admin page. What was it? A bug. So that's fixed. BooleanField Default value, no reference exception. This, if it was not set, then you will have a reference exception, a reaction to his PR from last week. that we saw, I think, already. You can have a default value for Boolean fields now. A default value for the Boolean field editor. Comingsoon confirmation email, which was broken, so now it's fixed. GitHub auth, so new thing, and we don't have a demo for that. But I think Antoine tried it. So now we can authenticate. Yeah, so yeah, I think it's Antoine who asked him that we have all the authentications, but not GitHub. So he said, hey, Michael, do you want to make the GitHub authentication? And he did it. So now we have GitHub authentication for the social auth. MediaFileStore to resolve before building a tenant pipeline. Technical stuff. Why are these showing like merge commit? Jasmin. You have to squash and merge when you merge the PRs, not just merge. We won't blame you for that, just for next time. Remember, squash merge, not merge. Where was I? This one. Fix HTML emails, because yeah, we took a PR that was migrating to MailKit NuGet package instead of the SMTP client from the netcore, and there was a wrong test for the HTML body, so that is fixed now. OC.ContentTypes view was outputted on publishing. So fixing CSproj, filter the content without apply button. So now as soon as you change the filters, it will change the view. You don't have to click on apply. New workflow activities and events from Antoine. So you can define roles when a user is created or registered, for instance. And so what do we have here? Assign user role task, user created event, and I think that's it. But that's great because we can use them now in even recipes to define what's the default role for a user that will use the registration form. Before they had no role. Now we can set one, and we can use conditions to check things and then assign different roles. Blah blah blah, merge commits, attach media field, we'll see that. All PR, but we were focusing on beta 3, how it's merged. Localization settings update, to reflect the fact that the default culture should be supported as a supported culture. Fix typo in localization documentation, fix JS merge error. I saw comment on an issue, I don't remember which one, that was suggesting that we generate the files from the GUL pipeline in the CI, so we are sure we don't have merge issues with the generated files. But we can't do that because these generated files have to be in the source code, not in only the generated assets. What we can do is try to generate also in the CI and check that there is no difference between what the source code has and what the CI generates, and probably fail the CI if there is a difference, meaning the PR was merged but the assets were not valid at that point. And we can't do it in a PR check because the PR might succeed, but then someone else will do another PR which will be merged, and then we'll break the previous PR. So it needs to be just a validation at the CI level. RTL HTML WYSIWYG editor, so making the WYSIWYG editor RTL aware. Fix of the PR, make content picker view component reusable. Reusable meaning you can interact with it. Content localization part, so we can localize content items now. We'll see that. POStringLocalizer should respect FallBackToParentUICultures. So there is an option in the request. In the where is that? What's the name of that thing? Request localization options. There is a property that we can set FallBackToParentUICulture, which is true by default. So if we look for a string en-us and it's not found, then we look for the string in the en dictionary only if this is true, which is default. But if it's false, we should not do that. So Isham fixed that by passing the parameter to the service and handling that. Isham again, who fixed the media styles to support RTL. So let's look at it. Are there any questions about the changes? My kid is here. Everyone who submitted something is here today. That's good. But not everyone who's here has done something. I could point some names around here. But that's okay. At least you are showing up and looking at what's happening. That's the first step. Then demos. Let's see what you have done. I think I already compiled before leaving the computer, and I should already have a site set up, but I don't want it because it's not a good one. Documents, projects. What is that? Where am I? Oh, this is not the correct toolbar. Where is my toolbar? Ah. This is what I want. Chart core, SRC, done. Where is Visual Studio? Ah, why? How can I hide this thing? How do I hide the toolbar? Like auto hide. Now it appears. I don't understand. This one, Control F5. Setup. Start with a blog. We have a blog, so let's look at the content localization. We saw a demo last week, so I will make it quick, but just because not everyone might have seen that, and now it's merged in dev. So to enable content localization, we need to go to the modules, and it's magical. I can just type localization here, enable that. Oh, sorry, enable content localization, which doesn't require localization, which is for the UI localization, but I will also do that right after. Then you need to go to the settings and define some cultures to manage. So we'll support the default one, which is English here, and I will add and I will add French because that's the only language I know. Close, and I will save, and the site has been restarted, and now I have that. First thing that I see is that we don't display what we already support. I don't know, it's weird. We need to click on add or remove supported cultures. It's not obvious which ones we support already. Not really smart. So that, and now if we go to content items, we have all the 3 content items which have not been localized, and they don't have any localization information. So we need to change what we want to localize with the localization part. So in the content definition, we want, for instance, to, and that's interesting because that's the first thing I tried, to localize blog post, but it doesn't really make sense. You don't localize a blog post, you usually localize the blog, and because otherwise the blog posts themselves are owned by a blog. So you usually have 2 different feeds with 2 different types of information. So maybe instead we can localize the pages, but that's the same in the end. So I will localize the page just for fun. Or is about a page. Content items, what is an article? So I will localize the articles. Article, and I haven't tried it, so it will be a good test. We'll add a part, the localization part, save. If I'm doing any mistake, just let me know. Don't just write. So I added the localization part. I don't think there is any setting inside that. Nope. But now if I go on content items and we go on the about content item, it has never been localized. So the first thing we'll need to do is to save it. So it's now, so it will say this is the current culture, which is the default one because it has no localization. And if I publish it or save it, then it will have forever, it's marked with enus. Okay, now this thing has been saved for enus and has a localization set. So it's part of a set of localized content items, content item versions. So if I click on that, first thing, so Jean-Philippe made the changes we suggested last week, which is showing the localization button directly on the summary. So here we can see we can add a French localization for this content item, which will be another content item with the same localization set. So it's the same group of content items. And here about, I can translate it. Because of the events, it automatically created a new permalink, a new autoroute for this content item. We could call it this way or apropos, or just remove it for it to be generated automatically. And then something like this. Okay, and we can save a draft or publish again. Now it's published, and if I go back to content items, now we have 2 content items which have their own versions and their own history of versions. They are technically unrelated, but logically they are, well, they are physically unrelated, but they have the same logical localization set that groups them. And we have an index to query for each localization set, which content items are inside this one and this one for which culture. So you could say, oh, while you are looking at this article, you can ask the index to say, give me for the same localization set the content item with the culture FR, and it will give it to you if it exists or not. Okay, and that's it. And then if we look at editing the FR version, we can switch to edit the English version, and from the English switch to the French version. Okay, we are still missing many things for content localization, but that's the first big step. Well, the second one, because the first one was cloning that Jean-Philippe also made. And that's great, I think. So let's look at the file, the page now. You see, this is the localized thing with its own thing. Some improvements people have mentioned Hisham has mentioned that we could add some metadata to link to the related things. We can also add the culture picker that will let us switch the current language and also maybe navigate from one content item to the other if it has a corresponding translation. If I can click on this bar, HTML lang, thank you. And this can also be included in the sitemaps also. We have a sitemap module PR, by the way, that might be useful for that. I think so. HTML lang should be set based on the current content culture, but we might have links to the other cultures for the same content item. But yeah, that works. It's beautiful. Thank you, Jean-Philippe. That's a big work. So we can ship RC because this is what we wanted to ship RC. Unfortunately, we have other issues and features to fix before that. We'll see that. Yeah, we need more features like also request culture selector that will set the current UI thread culture based on the content item that is currently displayed. Content culture picker on the front end, also on the back end. What else? Better UI, maybe. I was thinking, so Isham has proposed to use flags, but at the same time I found a site that is called Flags Are Bad or something like that, that we should not use flags for localization because they don't represent the language, just the country. We could use the flag of the country, but that's usually bad in terms of UI. People prefer to see the text. Also, something like that, the globe and the name of the local, so like English, French, like this actually. Then what did we say? What's missing? Oh, I was saying, if we go in edit mode here, this is a big bar for nothing. We might want to add a new zone in this template like there. So we could add buttons, quick actions, or localization like the drop down here with the globe. And when we click, we can have a list of that. It doesn't have to be the full size. It can be docked on the right. And that will be nicer. But for that, we need to create a new zone in this space. Well, to create a new zone, if this thing and this title will be a shape part of this zone. Super easy to do. We just need to do that. We could also think about having a sidebar, but that's a bigger decision. So if I click there, wow, it's content picker with work. We don't wonder because we know. And that's part also of the things we need to implement. If Sotiris was here, he will tell you how it works in Orchard 1. He's not here. So the idea is that you have implemented events. So we can react to when a content item is localized. This is why AutoRoute and Alias are changing their content on localization or on cloning. For content picker field on cloning, we need to find for each content item that is referenced if it has a localization version. And if it has one, then we need to change the reference to the localized one. That's how it works in Orchard 1. And this is an optional behavior also. So we need to implement that, and we also need to implement the field synchronization. So we still have things to do for the content localization. Okay. So that was for content localization. If you have questions, don't hesitate. Also something we can do, and it's not done yet, we could also trigger different request UI culture by the domain. So the same tenant will handle en.foo.com, fr.foo.com. We will reset the two domains for the same tenant, and then have a feature that would map each domain to a different culture. That's doable also. Many things we can do. So RTL. I want to show you RTL. So optionally, you can implement RTL, so localization, by enabling the localization module, which will provide ways to set the current culture to whatever the user wants, from the cookies, from the browser, from the URL. How should content item and culture picker should interact? Which one should have priority? I don't know, we'll see. The culture picker, content item, culture picker. The last one wins. Always like this. If you click on the picker, it will take the picker. It will set the cookie usually. And if you go on a URL that has a specific language, maybe we should use that. We'll see. Maybe an option. I don't think it will be an issue. So I enabled the localization module, and we still have in the settings the supported culture, but I don't have any localization files, so I need localization files. So to get localization files, we'll go, I will show you. You'll go on the documentation, and you will have a link to localized. And here you can take which languages you want, or every language. Let's see if I can pick every language. And there's been a change since last week, because the way we were encoding the path was incompatible with the fact we had some single region localization files, like Arabic, Danish, Dutch, French, or multi-region localization file like Chinese simplified, Chinese traditional, and same thing for Serbian, I think. Yep, Serbian Cyrillic and Serbian Latin. So if I open this file now, the organization is that in app data localization, we have one folder per language. It's nice. And you see now we have distinction here. That's better. So if I take this folder, localization, and I will go in my app data, no, not this one, this one, app data, and I paste that, I have all the localization files for all the languages, all the modules. That's a lot of files. These will become NuGet packages at some point. And I will stop the site, even though I don't need to, because I just want to restart it, because the files will be found and loaded on Onion startup. And now they are loaded. That was quick. That's a quick startup. /admin. And I'm in English. So if I go in the French culture, and I said there are three ways to set the current culture. Either your Chrome browser, or your cookie, or culture equals en. Oh, sorry, fr. And with that, the page UI thread is French. So all the translation will look for the French one, the French strings. And you see this one hasn't been translated because it's a new one, but this one is perfectly fine. Nouveau, article, these are dynamic types. Media, and an example, if we edit a blog post, this is dynamic data, this should have been translated. That's weird. I think I'm not the first one to have seen that. Oh, no, because I lost the URL. This is why we need pickers and cookies. And you see everything is correctly translated. Edit. Same thing. I should probably say make it the default, okay, if I want to do that. Yeah, and this is wrong here. So I will change the default instead of tapping it everywhere, because we also have a custom provider that, well, we have some custom logic that will set the default value if we don't specify anything. So I will change the default to be, it has to be based on the supported culture. So I will add a supported culture which will be Arabic, and this way I will be able to show you right to left, close, and I will set it as a default. So the UI will pick it by default, and you see now everything is translated in Arabic because Hisham provided all the translation entries, and also everything is on the right because it automatically picks up the RTL logic from the current culture, and then all the CSS have custom properties to render differently based or not on RTL flags. If I look at the source code, you will see that we have lang and der RTL in this case. Otherwise it will be left to right. So if I do culture equals fr, left to right, okay? So that's magical. And if I go, so let me go then to media, which should be there. Control F5. This has been updated this morning, and you see everything is translated, everything works well on right to left. I'm completely lost, but not everyone will be lost, which is good. And that's awesome. I think everything is beautiful here, and it's very simple in the end because Hishamko made it correctly by adding a new property to the assets files. So let's look at an example here. If we look at the assets.json, the only thing you have to do is to tag an input with generate RTL, which will process the CSS files to generate a new rule specifically for RTL by inverting all the margins and the paddings and the positions. So it fits correctly when you run on the left right, on right to left. Okay, that works very well. It's integrated in the Gulp pipeline, and it works. Look at that, beautiful. It's awesome. Let's try with Chinese. I haven't tried with Chinese actually. So if I will go back to English just to find my way around. No, why? Why? Because it's not a supported culture. Because I used the default when it was supported, but French is supported. So configuration, and then parameters, and then general. And here I will go set, so add the English one as a supported culture. It used to be supported because it was the fallback one. Add, close, set the English as a default culture. Save, good. I will also add Chinese. Which one is the one with the most translations? Chinese simplified. ZN, is that ZN? Chinese simplified. This one. Add, close. I want to make it the default. Save. Doesn't work. What did I miss? Or is it just that there are no translation for that? Default culture. View page source. It's still in English. Maybe there's a bug. Maybe I should read the chat. Chinese simplified. What's the culture code for that? Where do I see the culture code? The HCN. That's weird. Why did I pick then Chinese simplified China instead of just Chinese simplified? Interesting. So close, let's make it a default. Save. Still doesn't work. The HCN, but we have it. Still English. Why? Default culture, the HCN, and yet it's taking English. Bug, looks like a bug, that's weird. We'll find it. Does anyone know? I've never tried with Chinese. Oh, so sad.
The only reason will be that the middleware has not restarted when you saved.
Yeah, that will explain, but I saved.
Try it, yeah, try it a second time.
Yeah, I tried. Site has been restarted.
Yep,
Okay.
should work.
Yeah, let's try something. Kill it. Yes. So it should not work. Fine. And I will reload it. It's taking, and why is it taking oh, I added English for sure, but there is no reason it should take English. No, ZHCN is the default. I can even remove English as a supported language. Close, save. That's the issue. There is English. English was taken, even though that's weird. We should look into that. But that works. I have no idea how accurate it is, but we have content. That's awesome. I'll ask some colleagues to look at it to see if it's beautiful or not. But yeah, just saying, we have content localization, we have UI localization, right to left support. Isham is working on the setup module to also be localized, and obviously with RTL support. So even the setup experience will be localized. So that's great content. The next thing you see here that isn't localized. So these text, because they are there but they haven't been localized, obviously. All the dynamic data, all the thing that is created by users or configuration, like blog. Blog is a content type name definition, so it's not in our code. It's just during setup something typed blog as a new content type. It's actually in a recipe or demo. Okay, maybe we want for each current UI culture to have different values for the localization, and also in the front end. Like when I go see the blog, like if I go there and I go see the blog, this button, you see. So let's say, so you see here it's correctly. Oh, what we have also I didn't mention. Did we merge it? I think it's. Did we merge it? The calendar support. I don't know if we merged it. That's weird. But we have the PR with calendar support, so that the calendar is also automatically taken from the current UI thread. and the dates will render based on the current UI thread also. But yeah, whatever. So the idea is that if I was looking at the content item in Chinese, I would like to see maybe the title of the site in Chinese too. So to do that, there are two options. So let me go back to the settings here and move back to, oh, maybe because we had that twice somehow. And now the text here is translated. I'm totally lost. There's been a bug. Or maybe some caching. Yeah. So now it's using the system English version. Okay, save. Good. So I was saying there are two ways to handle these blog main menu things. First solution is when we go to any UI that requires to enter some dynamic text like a content type. So when we create a content type, we have to say the display name. So the technical name can be the same, display name like shirt. Okay, the technical name can be shirt, but this thing should be translatable. So the idea is that when we would enter this text, we could have a custom editor here, that a text editor that will let us choose a picker for each culture that is supported, and then we could define multiple text for each culture. Okay, and then when we render it, because it's a custom data type, we will be able to convert to different cultures. So it could be the culture not role by default, and then have for each culture a different value. And this has to be stored in the database, meaning today this thing, display name, is in the JSON of the content type record is a property called display name. What we will need to do is convert this thing to a structure that will handle multiple values, and probably map it to a custom C# type that by default will render the neutral one if we don't specify anything, or if nothing is provided, and then be able to look up for different cultures also. And we need to find a way that doesn't break existing sites and storage mechanism, which I think is totally doable because of JSON.NET and how it supports custom serialization for different types. So this is the first way to do that, and that means changing anything we can enter like this, like display name, like when I go to content, where is the main menu, the menu management, or we don't have admin menus here. You see, this is the same thing, because this entry main menu, this is a dynamic thing. This is coming from their main menu here. So when we edit that entry, we should be able to change each the value for each language. Okay. Yeah, that's the idea. So this is the first way to do that. Second way, and maybe a mix of the two will work. Second way is to be able, when we render something, to use a custom localizer. So instead, because we can't use the standard localization mechanism to localize that. These are dynamic data. Okay, so they can't be found in PO files. They could, but it will be your own PO files with a custom context. So what I'm suggesting is to create another localizer. Today we have the iView localizer, the iString localizer. We could have a third thing like called iData localizer or iUser data localizer that we will call on things that we know can be localized, but we want to take the dynamic data of that by default. So I will say here D of blog, like data of blog or translate of blog, but using a different set of strings that could be defined in the admin directly. And when it's not found, it will just add the entry to the admin set of elements. Okay, so in the end, when we navigate and we see something that is not localized, it has been they tried to render it, then we can go and in the custom configuration tool, and it will show all the strings that haven't been localized and could be localized because it's a dynamic data. And when we render it, we could also give a context like translate blog saying it's a content type definition name, so that when we go in the system, we could group them by content type definition name and then show all the cultures and be able to type something, so that the next time we go there, we see the blog translations. And we can also export it and re-import it if we want. And it will be stored in the database. So that's something we could do easily, and that will allow for providing dynamic data translations and also be included in recipes at setup and at export. Make sense? And that will be necessary. That may be easier to manage, probably easier than integrating it in the UI, even though the UI might be more intuitive because as you type something, you can provide localizations, but at the same time, maybe you don't want your localizers to be able to access the content type definitions, for instance, or dynamic data. So that will be easier in terms of security and localization management, at least. And to implement it, it should be super simple also. Good. Accept language shader request culture provider. Oh, good catch. Good catch. So whatever I was passing in the culture URL was not taken into account. Well, whatever the default language was as the fallback was not taken into account because my Chrome was sending, it wanted EN. And because it was a supported culture, it was always taking this one instead of the default one, which is just a fallback. Good catch, you win. Well, you said that 20 times instead of talking to me. See? Okay, so let's do that next. Next demo I wanted to show. So all the merit goes to all the ones who worked on culture. Localization in this case, Isham, mostly Jasmin, and I don't think about anyone else, so that's good. The content localization is mostly Jean-Philippe and Jasmin. Antoine testing everything and giving feedback. No, I don't think Jasmin did anything for content localization, just localization. And the last thing I wanted to show is the attach media field. I'm not even sure we've seen a demo already, and I haven't tried it yet. So Matthias is here, but I will do the demo on his behalf, and he will tell me what I'm doing wrong. Let's see if I can. I will go to content types, to article, and add a new field, and use the what? The media field. I will call it images. I hope it's media field. And in the images field, there should be an option to say attached. Okay. And then multiple images required I don't care, include I don't care, save. And now if I go on the content items and let's say the French article, I will have images. The images, we can pick up upload. Oh, what is that? That's new. Yes. That's new. Is it new? Waiting. Instead of add it uploads button. So if I pick, oh, because it's the attached thing. Okay, yes, I'm stupid. That's the goal of this field, is that you can just add image. You can't pick from the media picker. You can just add things to it. If I click there, nothing. If I click here, then I will go to my pictures and I will add some kittens, 3 kittens, open, and are uploaded. And these are not available in the media manager. they are only stored for this content item, okay, and only accessible from this content item as a root. They are stored in the same folder as all the media, but they are not manageable. You can manage them in the context of this content item. That's why they are called attached media. The content item is the aggregate root of these images, okay? So that's the goal of this thing, and it will still work. I'm not sure how it is rendered by default. Is it rendered by default? It is not rendered by default, but it's available as a field that you can use in your custom. Oh, it is not rendered by default because I have a custom template for this article, that's why. But yeah, that works well. And if I go to content assets, we don't see it. There is a media field here. Because I'm admin, I assume I can see them. Okay.
Yes, you can see if you have the right permissions for that.
Okay, but a standard user should not be able to see that. Okay. That's great. I know some people wanted that because the extra step to have to go to manage, add to manage media, and then select it was a pain. The next awesome thing we might want for the media management is to be able to copy paste. So drag and drop is already supported. I don't remember. Picture. Oh, that's not the correct folder. Hit it. Why? Ah. Update pictures. What happens if I try to drag and drop? I can't. I can. Okay. Ooh, that won't work. Right. What I did is bad. We should not allow to edit, I think, the fields like this because it's not there. It's not attached to the content item. It's in the storage in the correct folder but not attached. Yes, the thing that we might want is to be able to drag and drop like this directly. What? What?
Yes, it works.
I am sure we did that since the beginning, but I completely forgot about it. There is no UI hint. Nobody will figure out you can do that. We should have a text message like or drag and drop something like that. We have that in Auto one. Interesting. So it works. And so something you don't have, I'm sure. Pasting. That's the last thing we will need to be when you paste. The uploader we use supports that. There is an option. So we can register to the event of pasting and it will create an image for us. We have that in Orchard one. Super useful also. Okay, but that's perfect. Thank you. Thanks a lot. That's awesome. Oh, we should have a confirmation maybe on this one. Obviously, if I cancel, it won't do that, but we should maybe have a confirmation to be discussed. Good. I think that's all the demos I had. Did I miss anything? Antoine, did I miss anything? Content localization, we talked, sorry, PO files, we talked about it. We made a change with the folder structure. We mentioned GitHub authentication. It's not merged yet. Did I merge it? I don't think I merged it yet. Lots of other PRs from Michael that are coming will be merged. That's it. Questions? Comments? Next, some localization stuff to be merged, setup screen, and probably the CDN support and how to handle media files with image sharp and CDNs and Azure Blob Storage. There are some big PRs from Dean Markussen to do that. Jean-Thierry has reviewed them, but I want to understand if it's done correctly and if everything will work before merging that. That's the next step. And I think we are good. If you don't have any more questions or topics. Okay, thanks everyone. See you on Thursday. Bye-bye.